So I want to talk today about medium teams, why they're the best. I want to talk about NetworkOne, how no matter where you are in the country, no matter where you go, no matter who you know that lives in, whether it's sons or daughters or relatives or moms or dads, wherever they live, they can work with the number one medium team in that market, right? So let's talk about medium teams. In real estate, you have individual realtors, you know them by name, and they promote their name all over. Everybody knows they are one realtor. And then you have small teams, maybe 2 or 3 people, 4 people. And then you have medium teams, which are 10. They're classified as under 10 people. Then you have large teams under 20 and mega teams, which are over 20, 100, 125 people in a team. So who's the best to work with? Well, in my opinion, I think the medium teams are the number one team. So if I was going to refer my parents to somebody in Florida, I'd want to know who's the number one team in that market area, right? Medium team, medium, not big, not small, medium. So why medium teams? So the characteristics of a medium team are you have a team leader. So in the Casey Samson Team, that would be me. And then you have up to 10 professional realtors that all work under them. Now, why is that good? Because the information that top producers are feeding each other back and forth is incredible. Let me get rid of this. Let me just stop doing that. So the interaction between 10 top real estate professionals is incredible. I may not know who the best person is to handle a sump pump. Somebody in that team does. I may not know who the best electrician is, but somebody in that team does. So, the best practices of 10 top professionals, incredible. Nobody's babysitting anybody. So it's really the focus. It all comes down to one word, focus. What does a medium team focus on? Well, a mega team focuses on recruiting agents and getting leads. Buy leads from Zillow, buy leads from Realtor.com, buy leads from this, buy leads from that. Their only interest is buying leads. Put a home on the market, no matter what the price is, so you can generate open houses. If I can generate open houses from my mega team, then that's good because I can get them business. They can try and get business off that. Now, is that focus good for the seller or is it good for a mega team? It's good for the mega team, not good for the seller. The focus of a medium team is very simple. They want to be the best they can possibly be at selling a house. Just sell a house, right? Best marketing plan, best pricing, best way of handling contracts. So it's focus on just how can I sell this house? So when we're really good at that, then we tell all the neighbors we just sold their neighbor's house. Then they come in and then their neighbors. And then each person, it's like a tree. Each person is a tree. They will send, if you're really good, they'll send their mom, their dad, their kids. So get a house, be an expert on how to sell a house or how to buy a house. Be that expert. So the focus for a medium team is make sure you're experts on pricing strategy, marketing plan, contract negotiations, all of that, the home inspections. So be the best you can be at just getting that house sold and then tell the neighbors and then tell the neighbors and then each person becomes a referral source, right? Which is a great thing. That to me is the way to grow the business. So if each person that comes onto that team gets stronger because now they're learning things, Ferris is learning things from Johnny, Johnny's learning things from us, I'm learning things from, everybody's learning on that team. But it all really focuses of how am I going to sell this house? It's focus, right? Now, what's the focus of a individual agent? Well, I couldn't handle more than 2 deals a month, to be honest with you. So their focus is trying to control this mass mayhem. There may be 5 or 6 or 7 houses. At one time before the pandemic hit, one agent had $70 million worth of homes on the market, and she was an individual agent. $70 million worth of unsold homes on the market. So it's really, that's just managing chaos, right? Not selling a house. The focus of medium teams are selling a house. I'm going to talk about how that helps people all around the country and how this thing spreads, which is really, really nice. But the first thing you need to realize is why medium teams? Well, there's another reason why medium teams. So we've got some really special people on our team. You got Julie Hart, which is phenomenal. She does all the marketing. She does geofencing, which is expensive, and Google Ads, which is expensive. But she's perfected the social media part of this, of how to take that house and market it correctly to get people from all over the area to look at that house. A person in Arlington may be looking at a house that costs $2 million. In Vienna, it costs 1.6. So if we can reach out to the buyers looking in Arlington to look at these homes in Vienna, they're going to find a great deal. I'm in Round Hill right now. If we had a person in Round Hill, we'd be marketing to people in Oakton and Vienna and closer in, where this home that I'm sitting in, probably out here 1.2, probably in Vienna 1.8. Go figure. You know, when they see what they can get a little farther out, then maybe they'll take that drive that's 20 minutes a little farther than you think it is. So we can afford somebody like Julie. We can afford somebody like Michelle, who is the communications expert. Michelle is communications par excellence. And you can afford, you know, somebody to make sure, Sharon, to make sure all these listings look great and everything is done and coordinated. So you see, it really takes 10 of us to afford a Julie, or to afford a Michelle, or to afford a Sharon. And if there's only 1 or 2 or 3 of us, we can't afford it. We just can't afford it. And if there's 30 or 40 of us, then our attention is somewhere else. Our attention is, how are we going to get more leads for 30 people? How are you going to feed 40 real estate agents? Think about that for a minute. I mean, is your focus really on selling a house if you're trying to get leads for 40 agents? So let's take the network. NetworkOne is what I call it, right? So we're the #1 team in the state of Virginia. But really, am I the best team to handle a Richmond deal? No. Or a Fredericksburg deal? No, not. But I know the #1 team in Fredericksburg. I know the #1 team in Richmond. I know the #1 team in Dallas, Texas, or in Fort Worth, or all of these. So when you work with a top team, then it's a one call to the best team, medium team in that market, right? So let me give you an example. I had somebody going to Dallas, and we went to the medium team in Dallas. You know, not really crazy about that team or what they were doing, so we went to the second team. Well, guess what? That was the guy. They had the similar thought and mentality that we had. So really, when we're looking for an agent, we usually don't have to go more than 1 or 2, either the top team in that area or the #2 team in that area, medium-sized teams, and there you go. So this network of NetworkOne is very powerful. You know, I had a friend had a house, couldn't sell it. And I just didn't want, get it. I don't want to get involved with friends. They're my friends, right? So finally, you realize that the person that's trying to sell this house sold them the condo. So I said, well, let me look her up. Well, she's never sold any other houses. She's never listed any other house. She's not a listing agent. So what we did was put them in touch with a professional medium team down in Florida so they could get that thing sold, and they did, and at the correct price. So the focus here is, if somebody's living outside of the area. Now, let's be clear on this. The difference between doing this right and wrong, the difference between selling a house correctly and not correctly in Northern Virginia, $200,000. $200,000. The difference between people that get 105% for their houses and 120% or 125% for their house, that's a $250,000 spread. That's a big spread. So what's at risk? You put it on the market and it's not a success. It's going to sit. People are going to think something's wrong with it. Then you go into what we call the pricing death spiral, where you start dropping it down and down, and they still think something's wrong with it. Well, they know you couldn't get this. Now you're asking this. Well, then nobody's going to bid it up, and they're waiting, and you're going into a death spiral. So the difference between putting it on correctly, correct marketing, correct staging, correct pricing, correct testing and predictive analysis. There's a big difference between people that bid a house up or let a house go down in a spiral. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that in a market like this, where I don't worry about it at all. I'm not worried at all. I'm putting houses on the market. We're getting them under contract. But you have to have a plan in a market like this. Medium teams, right? I love having this medium team. Johnny will come to me and we have a problem and an issue. Let's solve it. Let's come through it. Ferris has one. Let me give you a perfect example. Ferris has a $2.5 million house. The buyer loses their job. It might have been 2 weeks before settlement. The buyer loses their job. All hell breaks loose, right? This is a big deal. This is the biggest sale in Willisford. So we all get together. We don't panic. You don't never panic, right? We're all football coaches here. You don't panic. So you come up with a plan. Well, first of all, does he still want the house if he had a job? Yes. Okay. Then the goal number one is, let's see if he can find a comparable job where they can make him an offer, and the offer itself will let him qualify for the mortgage. So that's the first plan. Keep the same buyer that wants the house in the house. Plan two, who else was looking at it? Let's go find another contract. So you're working in parallel tracks to handle this. And that's why when you have 10 experienced professionals all talking about what we're doing and how we're doing it. So that's what's called best practices. This is the best practices, and it just grows. And that's why, when I'm looking to send somebody to New York, I'm going to find the #1 medium team in New York. I'm going to interview them, make sure they're #1, make sure that they have a similar mentality that we have. And if that works, they're in. I rarely get to #2, but sometimes you do. Some people's has a very lofty opinion of themselves. I have no time for that. I need a worker bee. I need a guy I need people, not a guy. I need realtors that are workaholics, just like we are, that are professionals, that when I ask them 5 questions, they give me the right answers. Like I said, I'm a football coach. I can sit down and talk football with a person and tell you really quick whether they're a real football coach or just a dad coaching football. There's a big difference in the two. There's a big difference between a professional realtor and a person selling real estate. So let's talk about this referral way we can do it. If somebody has a friend or family member or business associate or even a neighbor, they can refer them to a medium team. In Northern Virginia, we can handle it. But in Fredericksburg, we would put it to another medium team. Or in Winchester, we'd have another medium team. Or in Dallas, Texas, we'd have another medium team. Get people in the hands of someone who is a professional and can help. And let me tell you why this is really, really important. For your parents, we want them taken care of. For your kids, we want them taken care of, obviously. But let's talk about your neighbors. If your neighbor gets a bad realtor and that bad realtor puts it on too high and doesn't prepare it and the price comes in low, what does that do to the value of your house? It drives your house down, right? So if I'm a neighbor and somebody I know is going to hire somebody to do it, I would at least say, we need to get a good realtor to help, get this in. I would at least nudge them and recommend the proper realtors. I have neighbors recommend people to me all the time. Why? Because they know that if we get the job done and we get multiple contracts and they bid it up, the value of the whole neighborhood goes up. The whole neighborhood. The value of the person that referred them to us, their house goes up. So what we're trying to avoid is a dumpster fire or a disaster in a neighborhood that suppresses prices. There's a neighborhood in Oakton, right off of Vale Road, first left. They kept putting houses on at elevated prices and they would sit for a year or two. Now, what do you think that does to the pricing value of the whole neighborhood? It brings it down. So homes sitting on the market does no good for people that are for neighbors. So, whether it's a neighbor or whether it's a business associate or a family member or a friend, make sure you refer them. Now, you can refer them to us and we will find the #1 team in NetworkOne to get them to work with, the #1 medium team. They can send them to us. We'd be happy to help. Now, we're working with the Samson Properties referral agents, right? Because those agents invested money. They understand real estate. They've invested money to get a license. This is a business, not a hobby. So they can find people that are either involved, that have had death, divorce, divorce, you know, the reasons for selling a house right now: death, divorce, downsizing, and desperation, right? People have lost a job. People were mortgage bankers where they were making $400,000 and now they're not, right? So there are people that just come into tough times and don't panic. Get them in the hands of a professional. So if I am, and this happens all the time, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I want to sell a house in Winchester, it's a piece of land for 10 acres, I'm not going to be doing it. I'm going to refer it to somebody who does. So put it in the hands of an expert. If you're not an expert in that area, put it in the hands of somebody that is. And that's the way real estate works. Now, I hope I've cleared up a couple of things. One, medium teams are the way to go. And for you realtors that listen, I know a lot of you do, you should work to build that team of 10 top producing agents that are all feeding off each other, that can all support really good staff. And your number one focus is selling that house, being an expert at selling a house. Then you tell the neighbors, then they tell it, and so on and so forth, and build your tree. That's the way you build a real estate business. My name is Casey Samson. You've been listening to Coffee with Casey. I know I've been on my own personal website instead of the Casey Samson Team, and I have no idea why, because it didn't allow me to put it on the Casey Samson Team today. We'll see you again next week on Coffee with Casey. If you need me, I'm at 703-508-2535, or you can reach me at casey@caseysamson.com. We'll see you next week. Bye now.